And I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension and everything and the drama.
How dare! Look at this! How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Nothing calm about today at all in any way, shape, or form, as the city of Vancouver, the province of BC, and parts of this nation of Canada that are wearing Vancouver blue are exploding with "let's fucking go." It is playoff time, the first time since Thursday, April the 23rd, almost to the day of 2015. The Vancouver Canucks are hosting a home playoff game. That day, they beat the Calgary Flames 2-1. They did end up losing the series. We'll see what happens now as they open Sunday night against the Nashville Predators. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks. You can subscribe wherever you get your audio. Playoffs has already started. Tyler, hello. I have to admit that you did not get the blue memo that Chris.
Well, it is blue. It's darker. It's not, but it is blue.
Not blue enough.
Not blue enough. Okay. We'll have to try and do better for next time.
How are you guys?
We know you own a jersey. Where is it?
It's kind of back there somewhere.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks. It's great to be back with you guys, and finally back out golfing again. The body is sore. Definitely feeling my age these days. It's been a very summery spring here, but we're getting some little bit of rain today, which is good.
Chris and Sean are sitting beside each other. Chris is getting on a plane after this and heading home to try to watch the game. So, Chris, are you ready?
I am amped. I've watched all the hype videos. I've been perusing social media. I'm properly hyped to be back in the playoffs, and I'm devastated that I'll be watching the first period in the airport. Second period, I'll be missing because I'm likely in the air, and then I'll be streaming from my phone on my way home back to my place in Kelowna by about 10 o'clock tonight.
Is there not a TV on the airplane anymore?
Not on WestJet. They got rid of those displays on the back of the seats.
That's right. I forgot. Okay. Sean, how are you doing?
I don't think it's quite hit me yet, to be honest. We've had a lot going on this weekend with Chris in town. We went out on Friday night, and then yesterday was recovery day. And then and just a lot to get done, sort of chores and errands wise, before Chris showed up here to do the pod. So it hasn't quite hit me yet. It's probably a good thing though. I feel like the days that I get amped early are the days that I kind of lose my shit when watching the game, and that's not necessarily the best thing. So,
he's growing up.
Yeah, I know, but I'm sure it'll hit me sort of probably around like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, but an hour or two before the game, and I'll be a nervous ball of energy for sure.
I'm feeling the same way, Kevin. It's hard to believe it's actually here. The pregame pump and circumstance will tell us how we really feel about the whole situation, and then it's just going to be like 2.5 or more hours of just following that puck around the screen, just atrocious.
I think it'll hit a little bit more when Colorado and Winnipeg start, because you'll start seeing the pictures of Vancouver and kind of get that will get hyped. I think everybody's kind of it's been a lot of Eastern Conference of it's playoff hockey, but it's not Vancouver Canuck playoff hockey. The Leafs played, and the Bruins played, which gears you up for a little bit of hatred because you don't like both teams. But I think once it hits in Winnipeg, it'll hit in Vancouver, and that will I think it'll click a little more. But we'll focus here on the Canucks and the Predators. Couple things I wanted to make a shout out for from a broadcasting perspective. This will be John Shorthouse's first time calling the TV side of playoff games. Of course, he called the radio. He was on the radio side for a while, and he did not call the 2020 bubble. But of course, that was Chris Cuthbert that did that with Louis DeBrusk at the time. And Brendan Batchelor will call his first home playoff game. Of course, that was Shorthouse that did that last time. So congratulations to them. And Tyler, we'll dig into the officiating because this will be something that we talk about. Before we do that, though, we got to give a little bit of a stick tap here to Steve Kazari. He had a very scary situation in a Tampa Bay, late in a Pittsburgh-Tampa Bay game, I believe. Was it Pittsburgh-Tampa Bay?
That's right.
Yeah, and he had was iced out on the stretcher. But he is back, and he's going to be one of the officials for tonight's playoff games. So, the refs are going to be the biggest villains as we get into the series, other than who we talk about that will be the Predators' biggest villains. But what are you realistically expecting from the officials here at this point?
What we've typically seen is that because the games are played with a lot more intensity and a lot more physicality, they end up letting a lot more go. It seems like so there'll be a feeling out process for both teams against each other, but also for the refs trying to figure out where their standard needs to be. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff that probably doesn't get called that in the regular season because the games are not as intense and those types of plays sort of jump out more from the flow of the game. It is a bit different. We were joking off the air before it came on. What percentage of the rule book will be enforced in the playoffs?
Yeah,
and I mean,
will they start with?
If it was 95% to start with in the regular season, it probably won't be 95% here in the postseason. But it people say it's ref differently, but it's a lot of it is to do with the games are being played differently too.
Yeah, it is certainly going to it's different. It's a different game already. And, just from watching some of the early games so far, it is, the games are a little bit low event here for the first four games I've watched anyway. So we'll see what happens with Vancouver and Nashville. I guess as we go into this, what is the biggest reason that you have optimism about the Vancouver Canucks? Maybe not only let's stick to this series. I don't want to get too far ahead of here. It's a four rounds here, hopefully, that the Canucks will participate in. But what is the biggest advantage or reason that you have optimism for the Canucks?
I mean, for me, I think the Canucks have more depth than the Predators. So I think that's ultimately going to be the difference maker overall in the series, is just which team has more depth overall, whether it comes to secondary scoring by the bottom six, whether it comes to how sound the defense is, how elite the goaltending is on either side. This is probably one of the best goaltending matchups for the first round. So ultimately, I think the difference maker is going to be overall depth.
Yeah, depth and just I think the ability the Canucks have to match up against the Preds. They have Lindholm and that line with Dakota Joshua and Connor Garland, who can be a bit of a matchup line going up against the Philip Forsberg line. And then that should open up matchups, especially at home, softer matchups for the JT Miller line, for the Elias Pettersson line. And because defensively, they're both built sort of very similar. They've got a very strong top pair with Nashville, with Roman Josi and Ryan McDonough. and then the Canucks with Hughes and Ronick. So I think that I still think the depth. Chris touches on a good point there, especially on the blue line. I think the depth that the Canucks have and the size of that blue line is going to really help with them. But I think just the ability the Canucks have to match up, have a true matchup line with Lindholm, Garland, and Joshua against the Forsberg line. And even if that line doesn't work, you know that they could throw out Miller. They know they could throw out Patterson, and that three-headed monster up the middle that the Canucks have, I think is the sort of the biggest. The biggest bonus that the Canucks have that I think is going to really be the reason why, if they win this series, that's going to be the reason why.
One thing for me that regardless of how much the Canucks have for playoff experience, this team has been through so much and they've grown together so well this season. They've had so much to take away from this season already. It just feels like, to me, I'm comfortable that they're ready for this. I don't think that they're going to come out there and be steamrolled. They're ready for this moment. So now you just got to believe in your process and working hard for one another and going out there and fighting for every inch and hopefully being on the right side of the outcome. Are the fans ready for this? Well, we talked about this beforehand. It's hard to believe it's actually here. Hopefully there's good energy in the arena and the Canucks can get off to a quick start. But yeah, Nashville's a strong team. The goaltending edge that, the Canucks might have with Thatcher Demko is some fairly, I think, neutralized with UC Soros at the other end. And, it'll be an interesting series, and it's going to be a grind if it extends to 6 or 7 games. We've talked before about the travel in this series. That's there's big demands on all these guys.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything more to add than what you guys are saying. I think the depth feels a bit more to the Canucks' advantage on both the blue line and the forward wise anyway. And in terms of, I think the goaltending is an interesting matchup. I'll touch on that in a second, but I think, and I also agree with Tyler. They've been through quite a bit this year. They had their losing streak. They were 500 for the most part after the All-Star break. So they've had kind of their adversity. They had a big lead against the Oilers and it was pushed a little bit, but they were able to hold on. So they have had that adversity. They've had some injuries. I feel like they're ready for the first round anyway. That's kind of where I'm at. But I guess I'll start with a couple of concerns. The first one is not that I don't believe that the Canucks have the goaltending edge. I'm just a little bit concerned that Thatcher Demko, I just hope that Thatcher Demko is healthy. He missed 4 to 6 weeks. He did come back. I just hope that's one little small concern, as if he is not healthy and they have to go to Casey DeSmith, that is a bit of a disadvantage. That's my first concern. And my second one is confident with a lot of the wingers. Dakota Joshua, Connor Garland, Niels Höglander, I think will have a really good series. Podkolzin, I think, will be really strong. But there's also some guys that haven't scored in a while or have stumbled into scoring slumps like Pius Suter, Ilya Mikheyev, to name a couple that are in the top 6. Those are my two concerns that I have going in, that if those happen, I have a little bit of a red flag.
I mean, yes, but I think it's, when you look at what they're matching up against, you've got outside of that first line of Gustav Nyquist, Ryan O'Reilly, and Philip Forsberg, the Nashville Predators, you've got a second line that has Anthony Beauvillier on it, Luke Evangelista. Like, it's just, I look at that and you talked about it being low event. The Canucks they've been playing low event hockey for a while now. They're comfortable with it. They don't necessarily need the depth scorers to be there all the time. And I think when the practice lines that they had yesterday, McCabe wasn't even in the top 6.
Yeah, Lafferty was.
And Sam Lafferty and Niels Höglander as essentially Bash Brothers on the forecheck with Petey, I think could be really, really good, at least short term. But I think it's if they can get past Nashville, yes, the depth of that depth scoring is going to be more of a concern. But versus Nashville, if they can, I think my biggest concern is not necessarily the depth; it's more the power play. If the Canucks power play gets going, I don't think Nashville has a chance. But that power play has been very hit and miss this season. And if it's not going, it's going to be it's not going to be an easy series.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Like I'll add to the fact that like Kevin was mentioning the fact that like we don't have fully rounded lines per se, but I think the fact that the dynamic duos on each line have been not only consistent but have had chemistry and success together for most of the season, I feel like that probably could carry the Canucks through that potential issue. But I do agree that it might be a concern as far as overall performance. And like Sean was touching on, I think it's more of a, if the Canucks are against like the Oilers in the second round as a hypothetical, that's where that really becomes a red flag, as opposed to maybe not so much in this series.
The power play getting into a funk is a concern for me as well. And as we talked about earlier, how many power plays are you going to get? There might be some games where it might only be 1 or 2 chances to really capitalize on a power play. So, you need it to be working. As far as practice lines, and I mean, now we're into gamesmanship season too. So, does Rick Tucker come out with something different that they didn't show off in the practice? Those we'll get to enjoy those kinds of chess maneuvers here as the playoffs go on. But if the power play goes cold, that's a big concern for me.
Yeah, just from the Nashville perspective, while I do agree that the Canucks have the edge, there's a couple of things that I think people are sleeping on. Don't sleep on that Nashville fourth line of McCarron, Sherwood, and Cole Smith. Just listening to some Predators podcasts, that's their identity line. That's the line that I think is going to be crashing and banging and causing a lot of problem. I think we're going to be hating Michael McCarron as this series goes on. So, and don't sleep on that Tommy Novak line either. I know Anthony Beauvillier is on that line, but I do think that they can get some key goals. So I wouldn't sleep on that forward group. Like, I do think Vancouver has the edge up the middle for sure, but I do think that Nashville can cause some problems. And that power, yeah, and you're right, the power play is a concern. And don't sleep on Roman Josi, folks. As much as Quinn Hughes can control the game, Roman Josi can control the game as well. So that is I'm actually quite fascinated. I'm looking forward to just watching from a pure hockey. Like, I know everybody looks forward.
Was it last year or the year before that they referenced Roman Josi as a player for Quinn Hughes to emulate? So that in terms of as a matchup, that's very interesting for sure, because they're very similar. I think Quinn Hughes is better defensively than Roman Josi is, but offensively they both control the play very well.
Yeah, to a certain degree, there's that Spider-Man pointing at the other Spider-Man meme between the two of those guys for sure.
Yeah. So that's that to me. Those are the things that I think from a Nashville perspective, I guess a couple of other questions. I didn't hear anybody mention Petey. I'm not concerned about Petey Pettersson at all. I think he'll be fine. I do wonder if the Canucks lose or it's a tie series, if he's going to face a little bit more criticism than anybody else, but I'm not worried about him.
I think that's just that comes part and parcel with the power play. Because I think if Petey's going, the power play's going. And if you're going to make an argument on whether or not Pettersson is the key to the Canucks' success in this series and in the playoffs, that's where it is. I think if Petey's going, the power play is going, and that could be a very big key for the Canucks' success in this series and going forwards if they get past Nashville.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm as far as Petey goes. If he's because of the new contract and him being a star player. If things are not going well for the Canucks, obviously he's going to end up taking some of the flack. But whatever struggles he was having in the regular season or in the past, now it's a new opportunity here.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can find some space out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why I wonder if they put Lafferty on that line with him. Like Lafferty and Hoglander can drag him into the fight a little bit. Mikheyev, he's got his speed, but he doesn't have that like drag you into the fight sort of game.
Also has had inconsistencies throughout the season.
Yeah. So I do like I think I do wonder if that's why Lafferty's there. And Lafferty showed well last playoffs when he was playing with the Leafs. He was a very, very key a part of why the Leafs were able to get past Tampa with his forecheck and his grittiness and truculence, if you will. And I think that might be why they put if that practice line is what the Canucks are going to do, that'd be why. Is because they want his ability to just get in there and right into the dirty areas. He'll drag Hoglander. Hoglander and him will drag each other into the fights together. Nashville's gonna fucking hate Hoglander by the end of this series, no matter what happens. We're gonna fucking hate him.
Yeah. The playoffs are where these pesky types.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's definitely a rat, and I fucking love it.
Yeah. This is where these guys make a name for themselves.
Yeah, it was in the game against Calgary when he gave that little shove to the Flames defenseman
Pashko.
And he decided to throw his head like he was a soccer player, and started that whole thing when we got Garland dragging Adam Klapka out of the pile.
And that was so good. That was so Rick Rippon-esque. I loved that of Garland.
So Kev, you talked about that fourth line of Nashville. I don't think the Canucks are going to shy away from that at all. Not with players like
they will, and I'm not, but I do think that those are things that I think you have to watch for Nashville, right?
Yeah, but that's also why the Canucks have gone after and brought in players like Carson Soucy, Ian Cole, Nikita Zadorov. Like that's why they've gotten the big defensemen, so that they can handle that and not be afraid, not be intimidated by that.
Yeah. No, I don't look, it's not that they're going to roll over I don't think fourth will roll over anything, but I do think, I do think those are things to watch out for. And the other thing that is interesting, just hearing from Nashville, is that they don't think, hearing a little bit of concern about UC Saros. They're looking for vintage Saros. They are not there. There's a bit of concern about Saros coming into the series, which I find interesting because I think a lot of people would have him, if not top 5, top 10 in the goaltending race. Probably some people would have considered him for the Vezina, maybe, or in the Vezina Trophy conversation, which I find fascinating. So I am going to be interested to see how UC Saros looks in this series. So, and they're not as confident with their backup as Vancouver is. It doesn't sound like with Kevin Kakinen. So that's interesting as well.
Saros does have quite a bit
and
of playoff
not only that,
experience.
the fact that the Canucks have come into
sorry,
and the fact that the Canucks have come into the last 10 games with a little bit more consistency than the Predators. The Predators were 4-5-1 in their last 10 games. So I feel obviously momentum doesn't always transfer over, but if it were to, that favors the Canucks.
Yeah, well, the other thing that, of course, you got to wonder is if Brunette and Trotz go in the room and say, if you don't win the Stanley Cup, you're never, ever going to see a U2 concert, like, ever again. Like, it doesn't matter if it's here, they're not coming to Nashville, or completely banning anything.
Okay, with that in mind, does that change anyone's opinion on whether or not the Canucks should come out to Streets with No Name?
It almost makes it a perfect troll job. It might be a tempting fate if it ends up blowing up in their face, but if it works out in the way that the Canucks fans would want it to, it's beautiful.
I think it's time.
We already know how biased I am in this regard.
It's time for a new song. It's a time for a new era.
I'm fine. Honestly, I'm fine either way. I agree with you, Kev. I think it is time for something new. But nostalgia is a hell of a drug, and if they come out to that, I will be pumped up. So
that song and Towel Power, that's a vicious combination.
Yeah.
I'm not like an anti. The streets will have where the streets have no names. I'm not an anti. I'm not against that per se, but I've long favored the whole idea of it's a new era. It's time to turn the page, whatever phrasing you want to use. But yeah, let's be honest. I've had some people twisting my arm here this last week or so about this topic, and if they do come out to that, it'll seem right, won't it?
And I won't be mad. I don't think anybody will be mad.
No,
so,
no.
As I said, I think when we had this discussion last time, I would love to see.
Fix it.
Yeah. I would love to see them start out with that a little bit of that and then bring it into something else,
like a remix.
I think that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. And they're going with 2 anthem singers, by the way. So Jag is doing the U.S. one, and it's Kathleen Irving doing the Canadian one. So
Elizabeth Irving, yeah.
Sorry, I call her Kathleen. Sorry, it's Elizabeth. Okay, so
where's the edit button?
yeah. I have 2 X factors for the Canucks. I think that nobody's talking about, and it's not Elias Lindholm. Defensively,
it should be.
No, I think
you're disappointing me. It should be Elias Lindholm, especially coming from you.
Oh, I think he's going to have a huge. I'll say this. I think Elias Lindholm is going to prove a lot of people wrong, especially those in Calgary that have been retweeting stats between Kuzmenko and Lindholm. Here's my question, Flames fans. How many points does Kuzmenko have starting on April 23rd? Thank you.
Yeah.
Stop it. Just stop it. But the other, I guess, okay, so the natural Lindholm one, but the other one, defensively, Sean, you mentioned his name. I think Carson Soucy is going to make a huge difference as long as his playoff run is going.
Yeah.
He had a really good playoff with the Kraken last year. So he's got some playoff experience. I mean, Tyler, you were talking about the Nashville playoff experience. You kind of look at what the Canucks did in free agency with Ian Cole, Carson Soucy, some of the Sam Lafferty. You could bring in these guys that have playoff experience. And Carson Soucy, I think, is going to I really become a big fan of what he's going to do. And I think this allows Nikita Zborov to be a little bit expendable in the offseason when you have a Carson Soucy, but we'll get to that later. But Carson Soucy and Connor Garland, I don't think people are talking enough about how Connor Garland's going to be in this series. There's a legitimate argument that he's probably was the second or third best forward during the end of the season here. He scored some really big goals. He got the Canucks he was dragging the Canucks back into fights with his goal scoring, especially in the third period. Those are the 2 guys I think are X factors for the Canucks.
Oh, I'm really excited to see what postseason Connor Garland will do. He's had a hell of a season, and he's again one of those pesky players, and he's so good at handling the puck just by himself, and that's going to be so critical. When everything tightens up out there, he could be a pretty big X factor for the Canucks for sure.
Yeah,
I think it's that whole third line is the X factor for the Canucks. With Lindholm, Garland, and Dakota Joshua. I think that line, if that line's going, that just opens up so much matchup opportunities for the Canucks. and it's a game changer. If that line's going, it's a game changer because it reset. Even if you have a couple bad shifts, you throw that line out and it resets things. Like even when Bluger was centering that line earlier in the season, that's literally what that line did. Is it reset things, allowed you to build momentum within a game. So I honestly think that third line is the X factor for the Canucks, and having Lindholm, he's a big upgrade on Bluger. Bluger is fantastic, especially as a fourth line center, but Lindholm's got the ability to be a massive upgrade on him. And if you can have that line as a matchup line and neutralize, especially in this series, neutralize that top line for Nashville, I have a hard time seeing Nashville win this series if that top line's neutralized.
Yeah, when I was overall talking about depth earlier on in this conversation, that's kind of what I was thinking for the most part, is like that third line is the real, like Sean was just saying, a difference maker. Like that is the X factor. That is what allows this series to flip in the Canucks' favor if that line is performing at the capability that we know it can.
Anyone on Nashville that you see as an X factor?
The X factor for Nashville's got to be Roman Josi.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's the key to win. I don't know if that's the X factor.
I mean, if you want to go outside of that, then it's definitely Tommy Novak. Because if let's just say that top line gets neutralized compared to the rest of the compared to like the Canucks top line or whatever, that's where the depth comes in. Tommy Novak then.
Anyone else before I? Defensively,
I'm not an expert on their especially their bottom half of their lineup, so I'm not too knowledgeable to be able to add into this.
I'll toss in the name Jeremy Lauzon, who also played with the Kraken. He led the league in hits, so I think that he does give a physical presence, and that Tommy Novak you'll toss Tommy Novak. I'll toss Luke Evangelista as a guy that I think will be a bit of an X factor. He'll be a guy that will score some. If he scores some important goals for Nashville, it'll make it easier for them. So, yeah. So how long is anyone picking Nashville? First of all,
no, I'm not.
I admit my bias is fully showing, but I got Canucks in 6.
I'm just surprised Kevin didn't pick Mark Jankowski, Flames legend.
Flames legend Mark Jankowski. I forgot for a while he was still playing in the league, to be honest with you. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say it would be disappointing.
Edwards Dylan put in the chat, Ryan O'Reilly. Like, if Ryan O'Reilly from 2019 St. Louis Blues shows up, that could be something to watch out for as far as the Nashville side.
They're so top heavy. That's the thing.
Yeah, they're a one-line wonder. If they are going to be successful, it's based off of that line.
Novak and Evangelista in a couple years, I think, are going to be very good. And where they're at now, I think is the question. This could be their coming up party, and if it is, that's tough for the Canucks. But right now, when you look at that lineup, it's a one-line team. So, and Ryan O'Reilly's a big part of that.
It does remind me a little bit. They remind me of what the Flames were before they traded Lindholm, Tanev, and Hanifin. Top heavy, a bit of depth. I think potential to get into the playoffs, but I can't see him doing damage. That's sort of what I see Nashville. Very similar to Calgary in a lot of ways. A couple of young guys kind of stepping into their steps here, but I think they're still a long way from. I don't think they're quite in that competitive window yet. That's sort of what I see from Nashville.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I said I think my biggest, when I look at the matchup, and I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is that blue line. Like you've got a Luzon, yeah, solid. Carrier, solid. Luke Shen, solid. Spencer Stastny is a question mark in my opinion. But they're all just. I feel like the Canucks just have a better version of that blue line.
Yeah.
You've got Roman Yossi versus Quinn Hughes. I think we can all say Quinn Hughes is better. It's been better this year. You could call that a soft. Then you got McDonough and Hronek. And as much as Hronek sort of cooled off, like in terms of production over the past little bit, I still think he's been more solid than people give him credit for. And that's a soft.
Can we just stop here for a second? We have to. Can we give Philip Hronek some applause for the chirp of the year?
Yes.
yes, Kevin. Yes.
The best hot mic
that was a master class. That was perfect.
That was great.
Yeah. And it wasn't even distant. Like the TV mics picked that up perfectly.
Yeah. That was great. Oh, that made me so happy.
Yeah. And the fact that it was against Calgary, like just that extra bit of sweetness to it.
Like, no, they had cut to that like between the bench camera live and picked that up at the time, did they not?
Yeah, I believe
they did. I think they caught it. I think they did
what
catch
a great
it live.
bit of broadcasting that is.
Yeah. Pure luck, but great.
Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah, no. The director of the truck is probably nodding his head in self-approval at that one.
But I think you're going to go through the
you look at the second pair, Lauzon and Carrier. Like you look at where the Canucks are with their second pair, which is I believe what do they have Myers and Susie. They're just a level up on that, and then you look at that bottom pair, with
Cole and
Zadorov. Ian Cole and Luke Shen are essentially the same player. Just one's a right hand, one's a left hand shot.
Yeah,
And then you've got Zadorov, who is a massive upgrade on Spencer Stastny. I look at that and it's just like they're built the same, but the Canucks have an edge there. So I think they're just all four of that. When you look at the bottom four, all four of them are, I would say, an upgrade on what Nashville has. And that's not a knock on anything that the four that Nashville has. We all know, like we're Canucks fans. We love Luke Shen. Like we love what he brings to the table. It's gonna hurt us to cheer against him. But we're gonna have to do it. Stastny's like he's their version of Noah Juleson.
Yeah.
Solid like 5, 6, 7 defenseman. Nothing wrong with that, but the Canucks just have someone who's better. Yeah. And then Lauzon and Carrier versus Susie and Myers, like Myers can be. We all know Myers can be a chaos drop, but when he's on, he doesn't get the credit that he deserves for when he is on. And if you want X factors, it's literally that bottom four on the defense. You've got the two chaos drafts on the bottom for the Canucks, on the bottom four for the Canucks, and Zadorov and Myers.
Yeah, that's why
those could be X factors.
Yeah, fair. So how long does the series go?
I already called mine earlier. I have Canucks in 6.
I'm thinking this is going to be a 7-game struggle myself. I'm going with the Canucks.
Yeah, I could see it going long, but I just have this feeling that the Canucks are going to be able to make it a 5-gamer.
Okay.
I think they're
a competitive 5-gamer as opposed to a blowout.
Yeah, it's gonna be competitive. It's not going to be a an easy series, an easy 5 games, but it's going. I think they're going to find a way.
Shorter but hard fought.
Yeah.
I see this as a 6-game series. I don't see how Nashville can win 4 games against this Canuck team. I do think Saros can steal a game, probably a game 3 or 4. But I just think the Canucks will eventually wear them out. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a split with these first 2 games. Wouldn't be surprised if Nashville even wins game 3 and has a 2-1 series lead. But I do think at the end, the Canucks are the stronger team. That's how I see it. So I see this. I don't see it. I don't think I see it 7. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm going 6. I have the Canucks in 6. It's where I'm
If the Canucks want to make have a chance at a longer playoff run here, they need to
Keep the travel to a minimum.
Keep the travel to a minimum and only have to travel to Nashville once.
Yeah.
Well, you look back a couple of years ago, and I think that was one of the reasons the Flames lost to the Oilers in that Battle of Alberta series is they didn't take care of Dallas in Game 6, and they stretched that they made that series longer than it should have been. So you're right, I do agree with you on that. But especially if you're going into the second round between whatever that opponent is, you want to get that done as quickly as you can and get that rest. So,
yeah,
wear and tear is definitely a big part of whether you succeed in the postseason or not, and yeah, you don't want to be burnt out after one round. It's just too much puck to go still.
As far as coaching is concerned, though, I'm happy with what Tocchet has been putting out there publicly as far as how he's kind of training the boys as far as how to prepare for the playoffs. Like, this is not going to be easy. You're going to hurt. You're going to be limping. You're going to actually, have to fight through some stuff. That's part of playoffs. So, I don't, like Sean was mentioning earlier, I don't think that they're going to, there might be a surprise bit of pushback from Nashville, but I don't think there's going to be any sort of blowout level just because of how Tocchet has prepared the team.
And they've been playing low event hockey, which is more playoff style hockey for a while now. That's just been the Tocchet style of hockey. They're used to it.
Yeah. Well, it certainly will be interesting. It's going to be a fun first couple of weeks here, or fun.
Fun's the right F word, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a fucking fun series. So there we go. Let's, some of the series have started. Maybe we'll quickly just address what we've dealt with here. Carolina beat the Islanders 3-1. That's pretty low event. It's going to be pretty low event. Carolina got goaltending from Frederik Andersen. I think that was a huge concern coming into the playoffs. I do think the Islanders are still going to just make this a series, but I think Carolina comes away with this. I just think they have more talent, and that trade for Evgeny Kuznetsov is one of the trades of the year.
Yeah. Also picking up Gensel, Gensel has been huge for them so far. I would say that that's one of the big reasons why the Hurricanes are as favored as heavily as they are in a lot of these playoff prediction posts and whatnot. It's due to the effectiveness that Gensel has already had in Carolina. So, yeah.
Do we see a Patrick Watt versus Rob Brindamore yelling match at some point in this series?
For entertainment alone, yes.
I hope.
Please.
I hope so. I hope we get
the face that Tyler made when I mentioned that was just fantastic.
Please give us this.
Yes. That's the funnest.
My bracket, I went full chaos, and I've got the Islanders beating Carolina, and I think that it will be because of their blue line and their goaltending if they can pull that off. So that's what's gonna. I see this being a very hard fought series. I think yes, it's easy to say that Carolina should win this and should win this in quick order, and they could. They definitely could. But you look at the way Patrick Watt has the Islanders playing. You've got a Norris caliber defenseman in Noah Dobson, who is a little banged up, but when he's on his game is is really tough. Plus, you got Ryan Pulak, Adam Pelech on that blue line as well. And even that top line that the Islanders have is going to be tough to handle, even for a player like Sebastian Aho, who should be in the Selke conversation. If you want a hipster, a very very hipster pick for the Hart, it's Sebastian Aho. But like I said, I when I filled out my bracket, I was halfway through, and I'm like, you know what? Let's see if I can figure out
into the chaos.
Lean into the chaos and figure out how we can do it. And I went with the Islanders, and I think it's not unrealistic to say that they could upset Carolina here.
Yeah.
And if you're a Flames fan, you want that happening, because that's another option for Markstrom in the offseason if they go out early.
Yeah. Just to stick with the Metro, I don't know how Washington wins more than 2 games against the Rangers. I just don't see it. I know that people are drawing back to the 2010 series between the Canadiens and the Capitals, where the Canadiens defeated them. The difference here is the Capitals did not have the edge in goal. The Rangers have the edge in goal, with all due respect to how good Charlie Lindgren has been. And some want to put, speaking of hipster Hart or hipster Vezina, some people want to put Charlie Lindgren in that conversation. Just see the Rangers just being too tough of a team against the Capitals. I just don't see the Capitals winning 4 games.
I'm sorry, but the Dash 37 only gets you so far.
Yeah. It's a weather
as much as
temperature.
they give them props for squeaking in, but yeah, their first round water. Let's be honest.
It's the squash.
I'm just bummed that we didn't get. We were podcasting while Matt Rempe was scoring the first goal of the playoffs for the Rangers.
Oh, damn it!
Yeah, I did see that on the box score.
Yeah. The other one,
and just producer Heidi wanted to do a fun parlay for the first Saturday night of playoffs. So we did the Calgary goal scorers pattern. So Matt Rempe was one of them, because there was no actually X Flames on the Rangers Washington series. So we went with Rempe, which paid off already, and now we got to have Monahan and Lindholm score in the night games, and we'll be good to go.
And you said $2 down potentially wins you
over 300.
And the most difficult part of that, Rempe's already delivered, so let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
There we go. The fight for Florida, this one is going to be closer than a lot of people think. And the goaltending was fantastic today on both ends. Vasilevsky was good. Bobrovsky was really good at the end there. Made a couple of huge saves. Tampa didn't get a lot of shots, made a game of it. I think Florida wins, but I will say this. If Tampa Bay gets by Florida, watch out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think at this point, though, the Panthers are more of a team on the rise. The Lightning, not so much. Not that they're in any kind of decline per se, but I like Florida's chances of winning that series, building off their deep run that they made last year. And then I guess they would have the winner of Boston and Toronto, whoever wins.
Yeah, I picked the Panthers.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I picked the Panthers in 7. I honestly think that they're the deeper team between the two of them. But like Friedman and Merrick have kind of said the past season or two on their podcast, don't underestimate the Tampa Bay Lightning, because you'll do so at your own peril. So if they are, like Kevin mentioned, if they are able to get past that first round, Lightning are probably coming out of a cannon all hyped up.
Yeah, I've got Florida winning that one, even with my chaos theory bracket. Actually, that's why part of why I've got it, because spoiler I've got Toronto beating Boston because why the fuck not?
Well,
Give
I'm
Toronto
glad I'm
fans
not
that little
only-
glimmer of hope before you snuff it out in the second round.
Well, they didn't look like they had a hell of a lot of hope against Boston yesterday. They were dominating for a little bit. They put on a stretch, and Swayman stood his ground, and then Brandon Carlos scores, and then you just felt the back break on Toronto. I was like, my gosh, after that game, I'm like, why did I pick Toronto? But then I thought about this. I'm not confident that Boston can win. Boston had a lead against Florida last year and blew it. They blew it in the last minute of Game 7. I'm still not sure I buy Boston, so I'm fine. I still think Toronto can win this series.
Yeah.
Like I kind of considered Toronto. Like I picked Toronto in 7, but as an upset, one of my 2 upsets that I have in the first round. Do I think that Toronto is going to go on a deep run? No. But as far as they were able to get out of the first round last year, and I feel like if I'll give them a little bit of credit, and they'll get rid of another ghost that's been haunting them in the Boston Bruins. But I'm not going to give them anything more after that.
I don't
what
think
was
the
the
Leafs
score in Game 1 of the Toronto Tampa Bay last year?
It was 5-1.
Yeah.
It was 5-1, I believe.
7-3.
7-3.
Yeah, it was something lopsided. Yeah.
It was a lopsided.
Yeah, it was 7-3 for Tampa in the first game. So it's not over. As much like the rational side of me thinks that like Toronto's going to get through this, but they'll still have to face Florida in the next round.
Their fans will not be saying we want Florida this time.
No.
Yeah. No. Nope. But they do need William Nylander to be healthy for sure.
It's always Game 1. Remember, it's just Game 1. So like the Leafs lost 7-3 in Game 1 to Tampa last year, and then won Game 2 7-2.
Yeah, let's be honest. To a degree, Toronto has a flair for the dramatic, so it'll be an entertaining series no matter how it plays out.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, there's a difference between playing Tampa and Boston. I mean, Boston is just so difficult to deal with just all the time. It seems like as long as Brad Marchand's there, it's just right. Like it's hard to have confidence in the Leafs beating the Bruins. But guys,
we already saw a little bit last night. But Domi versus Marchand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Game to game, though.
That splash that Domi put on Marchand was dirty as fuck. Holy crap.
Yeah. Let's go to Dallas let's go to Vegas where hallelujah, praise all the deities, that holy water has touched Mark Stone and Alex Pietrangelo and William Carrier, and they're miraculously healed for the playoffs, and they're ready for Dallas.
If that's a pretty good Vegas PA announcer.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. We just need to ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling.
Praise the deities. This is
with the slot dinkle sounds in the background. Yeah.
The man, that is going to be a vicious, mean, ugly, brutal series. It's not going to be for the faint of heart. I still think Dallas wins. I think Dallas is the better team. But again, Vegas wins. Watch out. Watch out.
Yeah, it's kind of the West version of that for sure. I have Dallas winning this in 7, but yeah, if there was to be an upset, I think Vegas could go deep if they are able to get out of the first round.
Yeah, I've got Dallas winning this, even though I did my chaos bracket. But I just do think that this is the time where you're gonna see, even though Mark Stone's back, even though Alex Pietrangelo is back, They're not going to be at the top of their game. So, and Dallas is just too deep. You've got Jason Robertson, who is very underrated. Mason Marchment, who's a really good, and Wyatt Johnston.
Their top six is deadly.
And then that blue line, you've got Heiskanen, you've got Thomas Harley, you've got some mean pieces of business as well on that blue
So
line
Lindell.
with Essa Lindell specifically. And then you've got Jake Ottinger in that. Like, that's going to be tough to beat.
And Ottinger's found his game in the past 15, 20 games. So, yeah, they can definitely be it seems to be they are kind of the pick of the West as far as Stanley Cup likelihood. So,
yeah, there's another. We'll get to the other team that's being picked in the West, but I just want to touch on Winnipeg, Colorado. I think that series is going to be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm picking Winnipeg, but I wonder if Colorado goes with Justice Ananen instead of Gorgiev. And if you're a Flames fan, I think that's the other place that you're hoping Colorado loses, because I think that they'll be making a call for Jacob Markstrom as well. And then does Cale Makar come back to being Cale Makar, which he has not been for most of the year? My problem with Colorado is they've just been completely inconsistent all year, to the point that I know they got 50 wins, but I wondered if Jared Bednar's job was on the line. Winnipeg feels a bit more consistent to me. I think the Jets win this series.
That's a flip a coin for me.
I had it as my other upset, in the sense that I feel like more people kind of think that Colorado is this overall stronger team, but like Kevin touched on, I think they've been way too inconsistent this season. And yeah, as far as another team that's kind of similar to the Canucks and how they're structured and how they play, I think Winnipeg is very much in that same vein. So I think they do have what it takes to get past Colorado in the first round.
Yeah, I just Connor Hellebuck versus Gorgiev. It's not going anyone but Gorgiev in that, at least to start the series.
No, I mean, but they're certainly, their goaltending has been very questionable at best for Colorado. Like, they're very huge concern of what Gorgiev is.
Gorgiev, when he's on, is really fucking good, but the consistency is just absolute crap with him.
And he's been below 900 the past 10 games or so. So
yeah. And then finally, I wonder if I'm the only one doing this, but it seemed that, certainly seemed from a lot of the expert picks, that the Edmonton Oilers are, other than Dallas and Colorado, Chris, the Edmonton Oilers are getting a lot of favorites of winning the Stanley Cup. I made my bold prediction from the beginning of the season that the Oilers are going to be eliminated in the first round. I'm sticking with it. I think I'm not sold on either one of these teams. I'm not sold on the Oilers' blue line. I'm not sold on the Oilers' goaltending. I do not think they addressed any depth. And I think that sports hernia injury that Evander Kane came out and admitted that he had, I think causes another problem. Can the Kings score? That's a fair question. Can the Kings stop the puck? Also a fair question, but I just have this feeling that they got the depth to do this, and I think the Kings are going to pull this out. I may be the only one, but I'm going to stick stubbornly on this. The LA Kings are going to beat the Edmonton Oilers in the first round.
Yeah, I think I think with the Oilers, like they had to really bear down and find it this year after a terrible start to the season, and they went behind Stuart Skinner. The Jack Campbell thing, that experiment ended. They came together as a team. I still think that they should be considered the favorites to beat the Kings, but the Kings are a very stingy team. I mean, as Canuck fans, every time an LA Kings matchup came up, it was just like, oh no, So it'll be interesting. I think I would expect the Oilers to still win the series, though.
Yeah, I have the Oilers winning this series, but that being said, like the fact that this is the third time that they face each other in the first round, back to back, kind of has similar shades to like the Vancouver-Chicago back with the 2011 era Canucks. So like I wouldn't be surprised if LA were to do an upset. That being said, I still picked the Oilers. And as far as who I would potentially want the Canucks in a second round matched up against, I would very much prefer the Oilers, especially with how the Canucks are probably very much in the Oilers' heads this season as far as the season series in that regard. And like Tyler touched on, like stylistic matchup wise, like LA is probably Vancouver's biggest postseason nightmare matchup coming out of the West.
Chaos theory, I have the Oilers winning, just because it plays into the Canucks have to play the Oilers, and it would be the series of the second round. Sportsnet would be just gangbusters.
Just think of how insufferable people on either side of that equation if that comes to be. Oh man.
Yeah, but with what Chris said, I think if there was any year that LA can knock off the Oilers, this is the year. Yes, they have a little bit of question mark in net, but Talbot, if he's healthy and on, I think can be good enough. And especially with that system that they play and the depth down the middle that LA has, if they're all rolling with Kopitar, Danault, and Pierre-Luc Dubois, that's the X factor in that series is the Kings' depth down the middle.
Yeah, the only way I see LA pulling that out is if Dubois and Talbot are the difference makers in that series.
Yeah, that's if Dubois can find his like 30 goal, 60 point self. While being a bit of a physical, just
kind of pesty sort of character on the
edge. I think that if he finds that, they win that series. But yeah, like I said, with my chaos theory bracket, I've got the Oilers facing the Canucks in the second round.
I also just the one other guy that I'm really watch out for is Adrian Kempe. Is also a guy that's going to make not a center, but I think he can make a difference as well. I think there's enough physical presence on that team that to me, like the Oilers have McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman. They have that one line, but Evander Kane has struggled this year. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins did not have a good year either. Also, and I like when you go past Ekholm and Bouchard on that blue line, that blue line for me doesn't do it for me. And I do think the Kings have the depth and the defense. I do think they have in terms of like top end for sure. No argument that that's the Oilers, but the bottom end of that, I think you look at that lineup, it's more, I would favor the Kings more than the Oilers for sure. Even with the acquisition of Adam Henrique and Sam Carrick and Corey Perry.
Yeah. The Oilers could, in theory, potentially win this series with a partial team actually performing at what they need to in the playoffs. Whereas if LA is actually going to pull that off, they need to do it with all like 22, 23 guys.
I know, but I still think the Oilers are going to need some of that depth to come through here at some point. At some point, you need someone else other than McDavid, Hyman, and Draisaitl to start scoring goals.
Yeah, I just meant more so in terms of the first round as opposed to overall playoff performance for the Oilers.
Yeah. In terms of like if we were doing a second round preview, the Oilers do not have the depth that the Canucks have. Like there's not in my mind, not in the blue line, not in the forward group. So, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's focus on this round first.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else we want to bring up or talk about?
Maybe just a quick reminder for everybody about the series schedule for the Canucks. Obviously, Game 1 tonight, 7 o'clock. Tuesday for Game 2, also at 7. Friday, 4:30 p.m. Pacific in Nashville. Next Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. I know some people are griping about that. Remember, that's 4 o'clock in Nashville. And then I think it's another Tuesday, Friday, Sunday with TBD for the start times later in the series, but clear your schedules.
And don't expect games to start at 7 o'clock necessarily Pacific. You probably have some 7:30s, and a little later. I know that there's some people really upset about that, but that's the way the TV works. They want to make sure they want to give as much time as possible to get that game started and transition from one game to another. So,
I mean, the first week is always so exciting because there's so many games on each night and all the channel flipping that can happen. It's great.
Yeah,
well, we've already had the Florida Tampa game this morning. Then the Rangers and Capitals game is on right now at the end of the second as of 2:11 Pacific time. And then you still got Colorado and Winnipeg tonight, as well as the Canucks and Preds. It's just
a quadruple header.
It's so good.
Yeah. All right. I think it's time for us to go watch some hockey.
You bet.
All right. But before we do that,
we're ready.
Are you fucking ready? That's there. How do we follow everyone?
I am Beer Canuck 03 on the Twitter/X app.
I'm at Schneid's on most of the social medias.
I'm on X at T-Noble, T-N-O-B-L-E.
Devin Gordhow09, and I think I just got a message here. Fuck you, Tyler.
Nice to hear from you too, Devin.
Check out our chat. Dan and I chatted about the Flames yesterday, their locker room cleanup. Check out on that as well. I am KEBOLE on social media. Check out Dan and Fireside Chat for some of the Flames content. Check out Devin Gordhow09 as mentioned. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now. Go Canucks. Go.
Let's fucking go.
I just was waiting for that before to shut that down here. Hang on here.